Thank you, Harris. Scathing rebuke from the Pentagon's former top software chief, who resigned from his post last month in protest, saying the U.S. has already lost the cyber fight with China. Quite a statement. Richard Grenell is a former acting director of national intelligence with me now. And Rick, nice to see you again, and good morning to you. Nicholas Chalin, I think is how you say his name. Financial Times, here's his quote, Rick. We have no competing fighting chance against China in 15 to 20 years. Right now, it's already a done deal. It is already over, in my opinion. You were hot on this topic. Is he right about that?
Look, anyone who is paying attention to their classified intelligence briefings knows that Russia's a problem, but China is a real crisis. And we have to be able to make changes. Let me say that again. We have to make changes to how we're dealing with China. You look at microchips, you look at drones. This is not a Republican versus Democrat problem. We've got a lot of Republicans in Washington who are part of the problem, who are protecting this idea that U.S. corporations can have sensitive intelligence or military contracts while also working in China. Remember, Bill, China requires you to have a junior partner. If you are an American company doing business in China, you have to have a Chinese junior partner. That company is loyal to the Communist Party of China. There's no getting around that. We need to have a very strict rule in the United States that if you are an American company getting sensitive intelligence, military, or diplomatic contracts from state, DoD, or intelligence agencies, you should be barred from working inside China. We've pushed that. I've talked to congressional people about it. But look, we've got the ranking member of House Armed Services, Mike Rogers, who is against that. He's a Republican, and he is against that because it impacts businesses in his state of Alabama. I think that's unacceptable. We need to have a wall that separates these two because China's coming for us.
No, well stated. We have called on General Jack Keane numerous times in the past month to talk about what President Xi is doing, how he's changing that country literally day by day, week by week. And then you had the military incursion over Taiwan just a few days ago. What was it, 100 to 150 flights? Here's Keane on what he thinks the administration should do with regard to that.
I think it's time for the Biden administration, because of President Xi's aggressive behavior, and say unequivocally that the United States will come to the defense of Taiwan if the mainland China takes any military action whatsoever.
You agree with that? Go ahead and make it public, state it, and stand up for it?
Look, I've been at the State Department for 11 years. I'm a diplomat. I think that diplomats should be talking about solving these problems, even while the Pentagon is making threats. I will let the Pentagon and military officials make those threats. I think it's really important right now that we have aggressive diplomacy, not normal diplomacy that just has people meeting together in Alaska and lecturing us on what to do on human rights. We have to have diplomacy with muscle, and that means retraining some of our diplomats to be much more aggressive when they're sitting at the table. Remember, if diplomats fail and we are sitting at a calm table and we somehow fail, we pass this file over to the Pentagon and they don't negotiate. And so I think it's really important that the State Department get much more aggressive on their diplomacy to avoid war.
Would you expect that? Remember the meeting in Alaska several months ago when the Chinese met with their American counterparts, and they were the ones who were aggressive at that meeting, Rick?
Yeah, they were lecturing us on human rights, which is unbelievable. We need to have diplomats that are willing to push back. And by the way, I know career diplomats at the State Department who are willing to do that. They just have to be led by the political people. And right now we've got political people running the State Department that are inept, and there's no other way to say it.
Ric Grenell, please come back soon, okay? And we'll continue the discussion. It's going to be here for a while. Thanks. Nice to see you again. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill.